Today, a preview of the president's re-election ad that is airing during tomorrow's Super Bowl. The campaign is actually running 2 commercials during the nation's most watched sporting event. They're providing a sense of his re-election strategy that focuses on the economy. And this comes as new reports this week show the economy grew at a rate of 2.3% in 2019, decelerating to its slowest pace in 3 years. Joining me now is Alina Maxwell, former director of progressive programming for Hillary Clinton's campaign, and Republican strategist Rick Tyler. Both are MSNBC political analysts. Hey, guys, good to see you both. Ladies first, here's Alina. So Trump's re-election message pretty much centered on the economy at this point. But take a look at some of the headlines from this week. Going into this 2020 election season, are these the kinds of headlines that Trump wants to see on the economy?
I certainly don't think that he wants to see any headlines that talk about a deceleration, since the increases in the stock market, when the stock market is up, are always the first tweet of the morning. Donald Trump loves to brag about the stock market when it's up. Surprisingly, he doesn't mention it when it's going down. And as you know, Alex, most of Americans don't have any money invested in the stock market. So we're talking about the upper income households that are really being impacted by the Republican tax giveaway that gave money to big corporations and rich folks. So I think that the average American is not feeling the positive benefits of the Trump economy, no matter what he says on the issue. Right. And I think that that's something that he's going to have to deal with going into the election in November.
Yeah, they're being told it's so great, but they're not necessarily feeling it. So here is what the president said in 2017, right before his tax cut bill was signed into law. Take a listen, everyone.
I think we can go to 4, 5, and maybe even 6% ultimately. Each percentage point is $2.5 trillion. We are back. We're really going to start to rock. We need this as our final push, and you're going to see some numbers that are great.
So, look, Rick, the highest he's been is 2.83% in a GDP over 1 year. What happened here? Did he make promises he couldn't keep?
Well, of course. Look, Ronald Reagan's big campaign thing was, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And he was referring to Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's GDP average over the course of his 4 years was 3.3%. Donald Trump's is 2.3%. And we just had the fourth quarter come in at 2.1%. And what's interesting to me about the Democrats, if you look at the trajectory since 2009, that's when Barack Obama was managing the recovery from a disastrous fall in the economy. The trajectory has been literally the same. It's just been slowly growing. And so Donald Trump says things like, this is the greatest economy ever. Well, that's been true since Warren Harding. Every single president since then, and I believe back to 1880, but I'll have to check that, has presided over the world's largest economy. So that's not new. He talks about low black unemployment. And it is true, black unemployment is low, but Barack Obama reduced black unemployment by 52%. Donald Trump reduced black unemployment, and I won't even give him credit or either one of them because it's just not the way it works, by less than 20%, so which is bigger. So he has a lot to talk about, is whether people believe it, and it's whether they actually believe they are better off than they were four years ago. That's why I would be careful about the Democrats really need to talk about how this economy, how we got here, and that would have been through the last administration, because you really can't point to a policy like if the number went up, 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 down, and there was a policy change, and then it went up where Trump could show there was a policy change. Sure, but there isn't one. It's the same line. It just goes like this.
Yeah, and considering that Obama took over in the grips of a recession, and then you look at 2014 and 2015, just checking my numbers here, Obama had 3.6% growth in 2014, 3.5% growth in 2015. And again, Donald Trump has not even been able to match 3% at this point. Like I said, the highest he's gotten was 2.83%. So his GDP, though, is growing at this pace despite this $2 trillion tax cut, Rick. I mean, when you think about it, this is going to have to play out in some fashion with Republicans this year at the ballot box. How do you see it playing out?
Honestly, I'm not sure it will, because, you know, these things, the implications of the tax cut, which was supposed to hire people and then people would pay more money and you'd have generated revenue, more revenue going into the government and pay down debt. But that's not what happened. The companies decided they were going to buy back stock. So there hasn't been additional revenue, and we are on record deficit spending. So we are financing, in a sense, this this economy. It's not booming. It's kind of meager. It's a little bit paltry growth. It's not great growth. It's okay growth, but we are financing it, and that takes a long time for those implications to come out. I don't think people will be feeling that by November.
Okay.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.